All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American LFC, the video podcast where two American brothers talk everything Liverpool Football Club. Welcome back. Super excited to have you. Today we are doing a match day review following the Spurs game this weekend. Guys, if you are interested in learning more about our American opinions of Liverpool Football Club, please like, subscribe, comment below. It really helps us out. Guys, we do have an incredible guest today, Brandon Pink. We know you, from people familiar with the podcast. We are very aware that you are the women's coach at the Platteville Lancaster Hillmen, which we are very excited to have you back. Thank you for coming. Whoop, whoop. But also, unfortunately, you're a Spurs fan today, and so we're really going to have to talk through this season, talk through this game here this weekend at Anfield, which is the home football ground of Liverpool. Brandon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Eli, let's start this off. How do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10 coming back from an absolutely abysmal 2 weeks into just kind of thrashing Spurs?
In the moment, I'll say 10. Overall, like a 3.
Okay, that feels a little pessimistic, don't you think? I mean, I do get it. We were on a knife's edge of possibly fighting for the title, and then we just absolutely capitulated like it was going out of style. I know that we are going to do today is the match day review, so I don't want to get too in the weeds about our season. So I think we could circle back around to that, but let's get to the game. This game took place at Anfield, like I said earlier. It feels like the Anfield faithful decided to once again show up, or at least maybe the footballers, Liverpool footballers, actually remembered that they played at Anfield. Brandon, what were you feeling going into this game?
Yeah, I wasn't feeling too confident, to be really honest.
If
there's one team who's maybe been in worse form of the big dogs in the Premier League, the team who's been in worse form than Liverpool, I think it's been Spurs.
Dang.
That's our fourth loss in a row.
First time in 20 years, they said on the broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss.
If it was us against Man City, maybe a little bit different. They tend to be a little bit of I think Spurs are the bogey team for Man City, but Liverpool, I think, just has the weapons to really tear a team apart that approaches the game like Spurs. So I was hopeful, but I wasn't very confident.
Yeah, you guys are just coming off of, if I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, 4-0 defeat to Chelsea midweek. Is that
2-0.
right? Or 2-0.
Yeah.
Where did I invent that? Okay, apologies.
Could be pulling in the 4-0 from Newcastle, which was
not too long ago either,
a
as
few
well,
weeks
right?
ago. Yeah.
Right. So it's been a tough run for Postecoglou recently. Do you feel? I'm curious about the ethos of him as a manager. Right. He's said this entire time in the first half of the season. It felt like the Tottenham faithful were really excited about the idea that, like, we're never going to take our foot off the gas no matter what. And having watched a team lose to Aston Villa 7-2 in the last couple of seasons, I think that sometimes it's perfectly reasonable to play pragmatically. How are you currently feeling about this full throttle, no holds barred type of play when sometimes maybe just being smart is fine?
Yeah, that's definitely the question that the Spurs fandom is asking itself right now. I will say kind of a two-part answer to what Eli said before about how he feels about the match, but I think I very much appreciate the approach still. I am a light years away from any sort of Ange out talk. The watching Spurs play for the last few years under the defensive football of Mourinho, Conte, and Nuno, I was not excited to wake up. Even when we would win, I wasn't excited to wake up and watch a game. So even losing and having some tough results with the attacking play, I will still take that over the inverse. With that being said, I think there's some tweaks that Ange probably needs to do. I think we are too open at the moment, but it's a tweak around the margin rather than the complete overhaul of the system.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, man, it did. There were moments where I was just like, from the very beginning of this game, it was just like the whole game is open. I was like, like Liverpool's not super interested in defending. Spurs aren't particularly interested in defend. Nobody. Where is there a midfield, or are there just two banks of five just sitting in each other's boxes? It was incredible. Eli, what did you think about the first? What did you think about the first half of this game?
I mean, it seemed like you said in the intro, that like Liverpool finally remembered that they were there to play a game and try and win. They seemed much more up for it from the start than I think we had seen even most of the season, even back in the first half when they were doing really well.
Yeah.
You know, because we went on and on about how slow those games were to start and how often we had to come from behind to win. It did feel like a much more front-footed, positive start, which I think is what Anfield needed to see. You know, especially in Klopp's penultimate game.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm actually curious about this because it felt like Spurs came out of the blocks quite hot as well, right? They were really pressing on the front foot. So I'm curious if we think that Liverpool just matched energies, or actually they came out like, is it a thing that like this is the energy that they had this past weekend at Anfield? Was it due to what Spurs were doing, or was it because of their own acumen? Eli, do you think?
You know, I don't know. I think that's kind of a tricky question. I think there was probably some emotion to that start. You know, I'm sure nobody let them forget that again, that it was Klopp's penultimate game at Anfield, and like,
right,
you need to win this type thing.
Yeah,
but,
you'd like
but
to
there
think
is
that, but they've
part of it
dropped
where
the ball
Liverpool
the past
have,
couple of weeks.
What's that?
Sorry, I said you'd like to think that, but they've been dropping the ball emotionally and like physically the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, that's very true. And I think throughout Klopp's tenure, for better or worse, Liverpool have always kind of matched their opposition. You know, and I think that's indicative of the fact that under Klopp, they've dropped more points to the bottom three than they have the top three. You know, just stuff like that. So I think there may have been a bit of Spurs came out firing, and it kind of like got Liverpool going too.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. So I obviously haven't seen that many Spurs games. On like the sort of tilt of this, Brandon, how do you feel? Because as I'm watching it as a Liverpool fan, the first 5-8 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is sort of like, this is a prize fight. They're heavyweight boxers. They're just throwing haymakers right now. And then it started to feel about 8, 10, 12 minutes. We started doing some ticky-tacky stuff. Mo Salah really started to find some space out on the right wing because he's like, please, Royale is the left back, right? Okay, so they really clearly targeted that as like as a pressure point. And I feel like with Elliott doing those overlaps and finding him, being able to do that incisive through ball, it started to feel like they started to bob and weave and like kind of land some quicker like sequences. Like, is that something that you feel like you've noticed defensively as a frailty? You guys need a left back going forward. Is this something that just happened in this game, or is this an issue that you guys have been facing for most of the season?
Yeah, that's definitely the weak part of the squad on this match day was Royale as center back. I think he's probably somebody we're looking at clearing out this summer. But we were talking about this, Eli, a little bit watching the game. But one of the idiosyncrasies of Postecoglou is he plays with two inverted fullbacks. So those fullbacks come they almost function as center midfielders, really. And so I'm sure the combination of the really idiosyncratic aggressive positioning of the fullbacks and just that individual one-on-one matchup, I'm not surprised Salah had probably his best game in weeks. I don't know if that's the
we
case,
can't
but
thank you enough because he has been atrocious for the past month. Basically coming back from AFCON, he was like that injury, he has not been well, but this has definitely been a confidence boost. So thank you, Royale. Appreciate that. That's super interesting that he plays both inverted fullbacks. That feels like it's something that could create disasters with people who could just play balls into the channels. If you have people that can beat somebody one-on-one, like, you're in trouble, because then you're pulling your center backs way out there, and that's not where they want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason I was not super high going into this game, because if there's one team on the planet who's kind of set up to just rip through teams on a counter, Liverpool is it. And if we can control the transitions, right, and not turn the ball over in really messy situations, Spurs have been excellent going forward. But Liverpool under Klopp, always excellent at the high press, always excellent in transition.
Right.
That I think that just spelled disaster for us. And I think you're right. After about that 8 minutes, I think that's when the screws started to turn a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was that happened, but there's like this thing where like Gakpo started to like drop deep and overlap with Diaz on the left-hand side, and then Harvey Elliott and Mo Salah started doing the same, so that they were sort of like both wings were pivoting and overlapping on one another, and that kind of seemed like when things started to get dicey, because it was like, wow, we're finding a lot of spaces out there on the edge, and it's like 2-on-1s. I was like, where's the defensive center midfielder just like coming to support, and then it's like, so I can't remember exactly the statistics on this, so I don't want to say it wrong, but we did have a couple of goals chalked off in the first half for very, very noticeable offsides, and then there was another call, I believe, as well, right, Eli? I don't remember. Or Brandon?
That went against Liverpool?
No. That we had scored a goal. We had scored a goal that was chalked off for offsides, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, but that was the first time the ball went into the back of the net. It was like, oh yeah, Mo was
clearly offside. Yeah.
But he does end up scoring, I think, in the 12th or 15th minute, if that's correct.
It was pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mo Salah, the famous header of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
At 5-3. Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, Royale again. Sorry to beat up on him this week, but just asleep. I don't know what he was doing. He didn't even check. Like they were even saying in broadcast, he was like checking behind. He didn't look behind him at all.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I wanted to like record that, Eli, and use that as the example of checking your shoulder and dropping into position, because it was textbook example of what not to do as a defender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really lovely to see him get on the score sheet, because it's like, man, he's had really a pretty rough go of it recently. But so that was nice.
Yeah, driving that price back up.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've stated before on the podcast, like, we feel like he's probably going to be going this summer, even though they're trying to downplay it, which we know is probably strategy. Okay, I'm just quickly looking up to see exactly what some of these things were. As far as like minutes of goals, I know that we scored 4 unanswered goals, and then you guys started to play football.
Well, he made some changes, and I think I said to you, Brandon, after the second goal went in, is like, why didn't he start with this lineup? Because he brings in Richarlison and moves Son out to the left wing, which is where I think he's best at. He brought on James Maddison. And what's the guy that his last name starts with a P?
Oh my gosh,
that I don't know. I can check.
Is it defender or attacker there, Eli?
I think he's a defender.
Timeline. Let me do a timeline here. Skip came in.
Oh, Skip. That's it.
Richarlison came in. Maddison came in. Yep. Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because when I have seen you guys play, like, I've always thought Skip was a baller. I was like, this dude can play. Like, he's like kind of he's what I imagine like the old timey footballers are. Like, they could have been the track is professional footballer or coal miner, and Skip feels like he's in that.
Yeah, and he's a Tottenham Academy lad too, so there's kind of a soft spot for him. Yeah, I think just on like an individual skill level, I think he's pretty far behind what some of our other options have been. Maddison was a little bit of a surprise. He's been a lot like Mo Salah recently. I think he has a lot more potential than what he's been showing in the last few weeks. So I think this is maybe Postecoglou sort of saying you haven't earned your spot on the team sheet there, lad. You got to earn your way back on it. Richarlison, I was a little bit surprised not to start, though. because as you said, I think Son's best position is on the left. And
100%.
Richarlison, I think, is athletic enough to kind of go toe to toe or shoulder to shoulder with Kwanzaa and Van Dijk, and I would have liked to see probably that second half lineup be the start, but I can forgive Postecoglou for the way he went.
Yeah, it is interesting that he decided to do that because, yeah, you are right that it's like the second that he made those changes, man, we really the whole face of the game shifted. It was 4-0 when that happened, and then
they scored
you guys
two goals
scored
in 4 minutes.
Right? Yeah, exactly, in 4 minutes, and then it was like, I think it was sort of like, oh, it stumbled us a little bit, and we were like, oh, we actually have to keep playing this game, and then it was sort of just like sparring just for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it was almost like a formality.
Yeah, really interesting that was the choice to not go with that, and it seems like maybe it was some management sort of. I mean, that's what you have to do. That's what you paid for. It's not. It's managing these huge players. So. Yeah. I get that.
And I wonder how much of that, too, is Liverpool taking the foot off the gas a little bit, too. I think at 4-0, you kind of think, we're home free, right?
Yeah, it might be. It does feel like, if I remember correctly, the goals, they were like sort of defensive. It's sort of like being lax a little bit. I think it is part of that. Mm-hmm. But clearly, they came almost immediately after the substitutions as well. So it's just like, there is a change. We took our foot off the gas. The picture's a little bit different. We weren't figuring it out fast enough. But, I mean, that's the way it goes. It is just frightening to think that it's like you guys did have the ability to put 2 goals past us in 4 minutes. Like, this game could have and probably should have been much closer than it ended up being.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, as bad as the Spurs form has been, I think glimpses of that is why I'm still very much Postecoglou in and looking forward to next season.
Yeah, I would like to just really quickly talk about a player that we were once linked with for like a brief second that you guys have, who is Bissouma. And I very much have tiny fury that you guys signed him instead of us from Brighton. He was the defensive center midfielder that was the year before Caicedo came in, right? He was the defensive midfielder that Caicedo took the spot for. And I keep seeing him, and now I know that he had a rough start when he came over and playing with Conte and Jose and that sort of stuff. But seeing him in this new team, I'm just like, man, that dude would be really great in our midfield. He's so athletic, and he can just cover ground, and he can just tackle someone if you have to. Like, I'm like, man, look, Endo is incredible. I'm a big fan of Endo. I really liked him. I'm a big fan of his. I just do believe, and this might be negative Nancy speaking here, that if we want to believe like we're in the position to fight, to challenge for the league, we have to have somebody that is in the same sentence as Rodri and Declan Rice, and unfortunately, Endo is not that. I love him. He is not on the level of Declan Rice. He is not on the level of Rodri. Those are the people. Those are the 2 center defensive midfielders that win the league, right? Yeah. I'm not saying Bissouma necessarily is, but I think that his raw skill sets and physicality put him much closer than. Go ahead.
I thought you were going to go with Mickey Van de Ven. That's who I thought you were about to shout out.
That's a different season that we were linked to him that we should have got this player. When you guys swooped in and got him, because this is his first season with you, right?
Yes.
Like, this would have been, so it's interesting. Let me put a question to you, Eli. This would have been the summer transfer window, this past summer transfer window, when we missed out on Jude Bellingham, which it seemed like we probably were never going to get, but we were looking to replace possibly Joel Matip or come up with a left-sided. All of our conversations at the beginning of the season were, while the transfer window was open, were we going to get a left-sided center back to basically take Andy Robertson's position so that we can do, in a very defensively conscious way, this inverted right back with Trent pushing into the center so that we actually have defensive solidity. We decided to not do any of that, and let in tons of goals this season. But that means, hypothetically speaking, would you have rather gotten and locked down Mickey van der Ven or not received our last signing of the season, who was Ryan Gravenberch? Because we got him on the last day of the transfer window.
Yeah,
if we would have got Mickey, we wouldn't have got him.
Yeah. Honestly, with what happened to Matip, I would say Mickey van der Ven.
Yeah. Yeah, because Kwanzaa has played a lot of senior football, and there have been, and this is not an indictment of a 20 going on 21-year-old professional footballer. There have been mistakes. We expect there to be mistakes, and that's fine. But some of those mistakes have put us in very difficult situations, which does mean that the league is out of reach.
And those mistakes are also easier to swallow when it's a League Cup game against Wrexham, whoever. I don't know.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like
That's
when he should be playing.
Right,
not
exactly.
starting against Man City.
United at Trafford.
Yeah, exactly.
And giving the ball away to Bruno at the 30-yard line so he has a free shot at goal. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, how do you feel like? I think there was a brief injury for Mickey van der Ven for you guys during the middle of the season, right?
Yeah, he and it was actually right in that spate of injuries that kind of came right after our first Chelsea match when there were about 3 suspensions, a number of injuries, that sort of thing, and he picked up a long-term hamstring injury and then a kind of short-term, what I suspect is probably an echo injury on the hamstring. So he's been kind of in and out since about November. But when he's been in, any team that looks to play like a high line, aggressive on the ball style, he would have been absolutely perfect for. He was kind of our second choice actually this summer. We were hoping to grab a French center back.
Who's he play for? Do you know?
It's for T. What's? Oh, I'm totally blanking now. Anyway, Van der Ven was a second choice for us, and he kind of came in and just slotted right in immediately. And he and Romero, I feel like the first complete center back partnership we've had since Vertonghen and Alderweireld.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment to think, right? Because the thing is, like, we only have so much resource. We only have so many people to bring in. Yeah, it would have been really interesting. It's sort of a shame. I feel like that if there's anything that is a cloud to look over the Klopp era after we are moving beyond it, there may be arguments levied at Klopp about his bullheadedness about acquiring defenders for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was a thing that he just was like, I refuse to do it.
Wait, when did Virgil van Dijk get here?
Well, it would January of 2017, right?
And who was the coach?
Jurgen Klopp.
Okay.
So you're saying one.
No.
Okay, so you remember when he did his ACL? Oh, you remember when he did his ACL and he was out for an entire season and we were playing with...
I'm just saying he did trump the money to buy one of the best defenders in the world. So
yeah,
you can't just, like, you know...
I think this is a perfectly reasonable argument, and I think we should have it out. He did sign the most expensive center back at the time. I agree with you. 5 days later... Harry Maguire destroyed that record. That they bought him for £80 million. So that lasted for about 5 days. He was the most influential signing, arguably, for our entire team for the entire run of Klopp's existence. I agree with you. There have been so many. It's never been about Virgil van Dijk. It's who's next to him.
Yeah.
That's always been the question, and the question has never been answered. Konate gets reoccurring muscle injuries and is wildly inconsistent. Joel Matip is made of glass. We had to go get we got a dude from League One to come in here. What was his name?
Nat Phillips.
Nat Phillips was our hero, right? 24-year-old Nat Phillips and Reece Williams
they got
were our heroes.
that one guy that never even played a game.
Exactly. He has the same name as a player from Spurs. Daniels. We can look it up. But he also got, who's the kid from Ozan Kabak, right?
Oh yeah.
These are people that they instead of just they were making signings on the last day of the transfer window after Joel Matip gets injured. Instead of just being like, let's be proactive at the beginning of transfer windows, and like, I know that it's nitpicky, and he's not even gone yet, so I don't want to get too into it, but we're already into it. Is that it just felt like, if I remember correctly, there are at least 3 transfer windows where we left it being like, okay, so we decided to not get a center back yet again.
Yeah, but like, the way Klopp's system works is the most important defenders are arguably the forwards, and the midfielders triggering the press, right? And if that's the case, that they do play through the press or hit a long ball, you have Virgil van Dijk there. I think it's indicative of the system that he prioritized signing players that were better for how he wanted to play, instead of dumping a bunch of cash on another defender to sit next to Virgil van Dijk.
Okay, I hear you. It just is interesting because it just doesn't feel like we have like is his tenure powerful enough to say that argument's solid? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, historians will be debating that for years.
I know, and we will be them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if I'm totally off base or if Eli is like having red tinted glasses. Brandon, what do you think? Do you think that Klopp should have signed more center backs?
Yes.
Okay, great. Am I making an overly simplified argument in the fact that, yes, he did prioritize midfield and forward pressing players, and that was his priority? And I guess if the option was to either get a new midfielder or a center back, he went midfielder. That's for you, Brandon. It's not really a question. I guess the question is like, am I making an overly simplified argument by just saying that he should get more center backs, or is there actually nuance in what Eli is saying that is like, well, he prioritized the players that he felt actually do the press?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if we're going to a break, so cut me off if I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But I wonder if there's an overlap, because wasn't there like an analyst or a sporting director, or a technical director you guys had, like Edwards?
He's back.
Yeah, Michael Edwards.
Yeah, and because he's been gone for a little bit. I think
leave.
2 or 3 years almost.
Yeah, and I it seems to me that there's been 2-3 years ago, Liverpool was just on fire. Their analytics would identify the guy that they need. They knew exactly who they needed, and they just went in and spent like FU money to get the exact player that they wanted. In that, Van Dijk is a good example of this. Alisson is a good example of this, right? And it seems to me there's been like 2 to 3 seasons where they've kind of been like fishing around, and they've had some big flops, and they, Bellingham, and are they going for him or not? Like offering $100 million for Caicedo on the last day, right? It's like, what is your target really? And are you going to go get the guy that you've identified and that you really need? And I know that center backs are kind of notoriously hard to scout. And as a Klopp, who's a big like vibes guy, right? He kind of goes on the vibes of the player and whether he likes the player or not. I just wonder if maybe that's a little bit Klopp, but also kind of a breakdown of the whole recruiting infrastructure on the background for LFC.
Yeah, I do. My personal opinion is that, yes, that is correct, because some of the rumors from the rumor mill, who knows if they're true, is coming out, is that apparently Edwards ended up stepping away because of there being friction with the recruiting team and Klopp's perspective on potential signings. One of which was when Jordan Henderson ended up leaving. One of the rumors was that Edwards was trying to get rid of him like the season before his legs completely fell off, right? Because they had the analytics to be like, this is since he was 16 years old, here's how many minutes and kilometers he's run, is like that specific. Who knows if that's true? That's an urban legend. It could be total fairy tale. It could just be a total cop out to just throw Klopp under the bus as he's singing his swan song. We'll see. I very much trust in Michael Edwards. I'm very grateful that we have him back. I'm very excited to see how the future of Liverpool is, because I think when you are correct that when we were doing the analytics-based football recruiting was when we had the best teams.